All over again. This orange lever has to pull out. Be very careful with it. You don't want to break it. This will let this thing slide, but it won't slide unless you lift this piece here up. Gets caught. So as you're sliding that out, this comes to, and once you get out a little bit, push this thing back in because it won't slide past this arm. So now that you've got this thing all the way out, it will pivot, turn this thing counterclockwise so it comes down. So you can extend that arm again and you can support it from the ground. You can put 2 stakes in to hold it to the ground if you'd like, or you can tie it to the camper itself. I've got it out too far, so I'm going to lift the orange thing, slide it back in, get it into the groove, lift this little piece up, then now you know it's locked in here. This little mechanism here goes up and down. To get it out, you lift it up, take it out. To get it back in, and you want to leave it in, put it in, slide that down, so now it is locked in place so it won't pop out. Now you want to leave this orange thing out so that when you slide the awning out, it'll slide with it. Let's come to the other side and do the same thing. So you have to release the orange thing to get it to slide. Okay, now it's not sliding because it's getting caught over here on the end. You have to lift it up, pull this little piece out, and it's the same way when you go to put it back in. This upper shaft that the lower shaft goes into has to be back enough to let this thing go in. Okay, so now we're taking it out. You can't take it out until you push this thing back in again. So it'll clear the main arm. Okay, now it's come all the way out. It's getting caught in here now. Let's see. Okay. And turn it clockwise so it goes straight down. But in this case, we're going to hook it up to the trailer. Now the only thing about hooking this up to the trailer is you cannot open your front passenger side door because that's what it gets hooked up to. So you're lifting that mechanism up again, sliding it in, lift that mechanism up so it goes back in seats and drop back down so it's locked in place. Now it's moving up and down. Now you can crank it out the rest of the way. Clockwise to take it out. So you're turning this thing clockwise, and she's coming out, and the 2 legs are supporting it. So it'll come out a little bit further. Okay, that's as far as we're going to go. Now to raise it up again, I would suggest somebody come over here and lift, and then at the same time, the cameraman's going to lock those pieces in. So that's as far as she's going to go. The pieces are locked in place. That holds the one side. She's going to come over here and lock the other side in. So now you're supported. Just the opposite. That's as far as she goes. Just the opposite for taking it back in. Release these things again. You'll feel it drop down already. But I tell you what, I like to crank it up a little bit without it, so you don't have the weight on it. But so those are released, and now you're going to turn the crank counterclockwise. Make sure you're in, and you almost have to pull on that crank when you're doing it. Actually, she's coming out more. Counterclockwise. That tightens it up too. When you're out all the way and you want it to, we had it out too far for the size of the, there we go. So I tighten it up again. I should have taken the play out of the canvas. Go ahead and tighten the orange thing up, baby. Same on the other side. I should have taken the play out of the canvas before we let it down all the way. That canvas is a little bit too big, I'm guessing, for this mechanism. Just a tad. So now she's tight.
Yeah.
So to get the awning higher, you're not happy with how high it is, you can undo it here, come out here, and actually that's a little bit too high, I'm going to lower it. Pull out the orange thing, lower it down, and I think that's the best way to crank it up. And that's the best way to get your best height. But you have to make sure that you put a couple of stakes into the ground so it doesn't blow away. So this goes down. It'll take a little bit of playing with to master it. We haven't done it very much. This is our maybe 4th time. That looks pretty good right where it's at, but then you have to fasten these to the ground. If you don't want to have it out as far, maybe halfway, you can tie it in to the door and to the back with the side braces coming out, and you don't have any braces in the dirt. So right now, this is probably the best way to crank it in. And I really think it is a 2-man job. So we're going to crank this in now. We're going to turn it. We're going to turn it counterclockwise again. And keep getting it. And when you get it where you want it, it'll take the sack out going counterclockwise. It's going to pull it back in, but we're going to pull it back in altogether. So right now, you can see the arms coming in. And I'm going to stop right there and lower this down a little bit. Matter of fact, if you want, I'll show you. See, this is the difference between taking the play out of the canvas. It's a little bit too pulled. I got a little bit more out of it. That's a comfortable picnic table. Sits right here. If it's raining, the water runs off nice to the side. You still have your height here, and the water still runs off. If you want to hook this side up too, pull out the orange tab, walk it over. Once you master this thing, it's not as bad. So you then lock it right there, so you still have a little bit of height here, and you're not out as far with it. You want to crank it the rest of the way in. I think it's best to put this back on the ground again, but before you do that, you have to put these arms back in. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to put it away, so we're turning this back so it slides in. And it is hard to clear this thing. You have to wiggle it around and hold your tongue just right. Okay, now this is sticking out a little bit, so I got to pull the orange tab back out, push this in. And it doesn't go in all the way. It only goes in so that this thing can fold back. If you push it in too far, this thing's not going to fold back. So you want it right there, then push the orange tab back in so that locks it in place. Slide it all the way in. This will clear this right here. It comes back out easy. If you don't have this thing too far in when you locked it, you won't get it out. You have to lift it up to pull it out to get it started. Same with the other side. Okay, that's where you want it to be now. So I'm going to take it out of the door brace, which means I got to pull this pin back up, and now she's ready to go back in. So let the weight go on the main arms. I'm going to turn this thing sideways a little bit just to get it in the hole. I'm not holding my tongue just right. Start it up again. You ready? So when you're putting this back in, you have to make sure it's all the way out to get those 2 tits to go in. If it's not all the way out, those tits, one tit is not in, you won't get it in. It has to be out far enough so both of these little tits go into those female holes, and then she will slide in. And remember, you have it extended, so you're going to pull the orange tab out, slide it back in, put it all the way. Oops. Got to clear that first, then pull it out all the way. Slide this back in, but make sure It's not all the way in. You're leaving that little bit of gap so that this thing will lift up and clear. And that's all there is to it. Same way when you pull it out. You want to have room for this thing to go down or it's not going to come out. Right now it's hold on a second. It's like that, or else it won't go back in. So now you got it back in. Lock the other end down, and she's ready to crank in all the way. Counterclockwise, pulling on the crank down, or it'll come out of the hole at the top. I'm going to wash this dirt dauber nest off for now, but that is the end of our show.